So the first thing I want to talk about is the workspace itself. And one of the pros of using Clip Studio is that it is highly flexible in how where everything is and how it's set up and how it looks. And so you don't necessarily have to have yours looking like mine if you don't want to, but I will show you how I have mine set up and kind of explain why. But of course, feel free to kind of do your own thing. These are called palettes, and I don't want this to confuse you because when we're coloring, we talk about color palettes a lot, but in Clip Studio, this is, for example, the color wheel palette. This is the layer palette, the tool property palette. So I will probably interchangeably use the term palette in Windows. So again, don't let that get you mixed up there. Now, the way that I have mine set up, I am right-handed. So I have most of the things that I click most often on the right side. Left-handed, you might want to put them on the left. On all of these palettes, you can just grab the name of the palette and it'll turn red. You can drop it on the canvas if you're someone that likes things kind of on the canvas. You can slide them into the edges of things and it will pop into the edge. You can slide it in between things like this and it will pop up in the middle. And when you see it turn red like this, when it turns the entire square here red, it's really making a new tab at the top. Okay. So now I've got tool properties and color history on these two tabs here. But I use color history quite a bit. What this does by default is to just show you the colors that you picked most recently. And I usually keep this pretty small because, I'm not necessarily going to go back and grab, the color that I picked 50 colors ago. You can adjust the look of a lot of these particular, palettes by, like I've got mine set to size medium 3. You can change it, you can make it larger, you can make it smaller. Just click on this little 3 lines right up here in the corner, click on view, and you can adjust how that looks. Right below the color history, we have the tool properties, which I'll be going into a lot more specifics on each tool for this later. You also have the sub-tools. You can think of this as, well, they're sub-tools. They're tools within the tools you pick. So for example, if I pick a lasso, I've actually got multiple different types of lassos here. I click on the fill, what looks like a bucket tool there. You'll see there are multiple types of bucket tools as well. Again, we'll go into a lot more detail on all this stuff later. Color wheel, that one's pretty self-explanatory. There are a couple of different options for this too. I have mine set at HSV, and that makes it a square. I think if you set it to HLS, it makes it a triangle. But I like the HSV myself, and we'll go into details on the color wheel later as well. Layer window, we'll spend a whole lesson on layers. Then on the left side, we have the navigator. I'm going to go ahead and drop in a file just so we have something in here. This is one of the files we'll be working on during this course. I had an artist friend of mine, Rebecca Isaacs, draw this likeness of me with a robot arm shooting a hologram of a cat. So we can talk about special effects and things later. But the navigator is a good way to back up from your canvas without having to back up from your canvas. So even if I'm zoomed up really close on a canvas, I can still get an overall look, at the entire picture. And a lot of times when you're coloring, it's useful to see, is what I'm doing at this size, working at the smaller size. So I have that open for mine. Not necessarily something you have to have, but I find it useful. And there are a couple of different little buttons here. You can actually zoom in and out on your image here with these buttons. You can go 100% if you need to see full size. You can fit it to the size of the navigator, or you can fit it to the size of the canvas, which in this case is about the same. Yeah, fit to screen. If you mouse over these, you'll be able to see. Below the navigator is auto actions. And these are what, if you're used to Photoshop, these would be called just actions. And these are just different things you can automate. I'll be going through and I'll show you how to make some of these in a lesson later. And then quick access, this is really one of the most powerful features in this app, and I'll be doing a lesson on it later as well. But it basically lets us move anything from the menus, because there are some things that are kind of buried in menus up here. You can just drag them into this area and have them right there available to you. And you can have multiple sets of actions as well, or multiple sets of quick access settings, I guess they're called. And we'll be going over that later as well. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the preferences and go through a few of the things that I've changed that you might want to consider. So if you go to File and then go down to Preferences, or Control K, I believe is the default, and that'll take us to the preferences. And I'll just start at the top. I think most of what I have here should be default. There are a couple things I want to point out here. So now I am working on a drawing, like an Intuos, graphics tablet. It doesn't have a screen on it, but it's just a regular drawing tablet. And so I don't have any kind of touch features. If you're on an iPad or something, this is probably going to be checked if you want to be able to use your fingers as well. But I'll be using the desktop version, so we're not going to be using any touch gestures. In the interface section, one thing I wanted to point out here, this is where you can go and decide what color that you're, sorry to blind you, you can decide what color you want the app to be. You can choose between light and dark. You can also choose the density of that. So basically, if you go further to the right, it lightens it up a little bit. Personally, I like things really dark. If you like them light, that is an option. I think this is blinding me, so I'm going to put it back on dark. But that is where you can go to change that. Just go to Preferences and then Interface. Performance, you should be good to leave this at the default information that just shows up in your when you install it. Same thing with the cursor. Although if you do want to change what your cursor looks like, this is where you can go change that. Layer frames, nothing really interesting here. Light table, we're not going to be using. Camera paths, again, not things we're going to cover. I'm going to skip on down to canvas. Now, I've got mine, I think, well, the default is default, but I've got mine set to high quality. But if you notice that it gets a little jittery, or if you notice that your computer seems to bog down on high quality, then just set it to default, and that should be able to work fine in any case. Now, in this section, the one thing that I did do is I removed some of the options that are available here on scaling, because by default, if I click the Z or use the zoom tool and zoom up, you can just keep zooming up until like 3600% or something kind of ridiculous, and you end up with looking at pixels like this. So what you can do, if you go back to Preferences and go to Canvas and under Scale, you can actually limit how far you can zoom in. Now, I've got mine set to 400%. That is plenty for me. Somebody might want to be able to do more, but I couldn't understand why you're having to zoom up that far. Honestly, you're probably doing something wrong. So I removed everything above 400, and even this might even be too high, but you can just click on any of these, like the 0.78%. I will probably never zoom out that far either, so I'll click delete, and now it will remove that. And so what this will let you do, you can only zoom in to 400%. It won't get any bigger than that. You can't accidentally, keep clicking and zoom up into a pixel level like that. Now you can still, with the zoom tool, draw a box and zoom even further. If for some reason you wanted to, you can draw a box and that'll let you do that. Anyway, I'm going to click on the fit to screen to zoom this back up. Under File, Auto Recovery, this is something you might want to turn on. I've got mine set to save every 5 minutes because I don't want to lose any more than 5 minutes of work or I get ornery. So I think by default it's set to 10. Again, this is totally up to you. There is no rules here, but for me, I don't want to lose more than 5 minutes worth of work. So I've got mine set to 5. On color conversion, I don't know what these things are by default. I've changed it and can't remember, but I tell you what I've got mine set to, and it seems to do a pretty good job. On the RGB profile, I've got it set to this RGB IEC and all these numbers here. And on the CMYK profile, which it allows you to export CMYK files for print, I've got mine set to this US web-coded swap v2. There are a couple that are similar to this, but it's the one that's labeled like this. And this is the closest one that I found to the CMYK profiles that I use to print my professional work. When they get sent to comic book publishers like Image or IDW or Vault Comics, whoever I'm working with. Clip is limited in the ones that are available here, but this one seems to be the closest. So I've got mine set on that. I have this set to relative color metric. I think it's perceptual by default, but I've found that relative colorimetric, I think is how you say that word. That's what I've got mine set on. And then for the ICC library, I've got mine set to just the default. I didn't make any changes there. The last section is 3D, which I really won't be doing anything with 3D in this course. You do have some options to go in and change the default figures. Not something we'll be dealing with in this course, though. One other quick setup feature that I want to point out. If you're like me and tend to sometimes work kind of quickly. I will sometimes accidentally grab one of these edges and like change the size of my menus, which really, that bugs me. It probably bugs you. You can go down to Window. If you go to Window and then Palette Dock, fix the width of the palette dock. Now this is not checked by default. I've got it checked, but if I uncheck it, I can go in here and change the size of these things. But if I like where it is and I don't want to change it, which right now this is how I like it, I'm just going to go back to Window, Palette Dock, fix the width of the palette dock. And at that point, you won't be able to accidentally grab this and change the shapes of these windows. You can still grab the palettes and move those things around, but it won't let you change the width of these, which can be annoying if you do it by accident. And then the last thing I want to point out in this section is on the workspace. Not a bad idea to go ahead and register this workspace as a material. And what this does is, let's see, you'll get this warning, auto actions. This is basically letting us know that the auto actions don't necessarily come with this, and that's fine. So just click OK. And then you'll have an option of where you want to save it. You just click on all materials, and you can put this wherever you want, but I usually put mine in download. Just click OK, and that will save your workspace as a material. If you do save that into the download section of the materials, if you go into Clip Studio, which is actually what they call this window that opens on the desktop, this is Clip Studio Paint. It's a little confusing, but in Clip Studio, if you go into all materials and then download, you can see this is that workspace that I just saved. You click this little button right here, it will switch the syncing and you can sync that now as well. And it will go ahead and sync that workspace to the cloud, which makes it really easy to go back and back up later if you need to. So that covers the basics on the workspace. Let's move on to the next one.